Hello, really excited to be here. Uh, since yesterday, I gained more confidence for my paper for two reasons. Its major contribution is for low-resourced languages, and I see that the people in this room value this a lot. And last but not least, we're in the building called Home of Europe, and our main source of data is from the European Union. So everything is perfect. As the name suggests, we're proposing a new text summarization dataset. It's on European legislation laws. It's in 24 languages, and I'll show you some details about it. My name is Valentin. We're a team from Sofia University together with Todor and Professor Ivan Koychev. Let's jump on to the interesting part. It has a super exciting name, EurLexSummarization. The name originates from the name of the website. Basically, it's EurLex, and we added summarization. And the source is from official website from the European Union. It contains summaries of European laws that are manually created by experts, and it contains data in 24 languages. How did we retrieve the dataset? Well, initially we crawled the data. Then we removed the complementary information. As you can imagine, this is a website. It has lots of metadata. It has additional documents, references, and everything else, which doesn't add any value to our dataset. So we removed it, we cleaned it, and we also removed lots of invalid documents. There were many cases where there was a missing translation for a specific language. There were cases where the summary was longer than the full document. Some of the inconsistencies we managed to clean automatically, but for some of them we had to do some manual checks and remove them. Finally, we ended up removing around 11% of the data. Actually, if we have contacts with the creators of the site, we can provide many advices on how to improve the data. Finally, we ended up with the following. We have 40,865 documents. English, as expected, has the largest count, 1,816, and Irish has the fewest with 511. I want to emphasize here on the length of the full documents and the summaries. As you can see, the average word count for the full documents is around 20,000 words, but the longest document has more than 925,000 words. For the summary, the summaries, the situation is similar, with the average word count being 511, and the longest summary having 5,326 words. This comes to show that there is a huge variation in both the length of the full documents and the summaries, and also in the ratio between the full documents and the summaries. Why we think this data set is important? Why do we think it is challenging? And why is it worth it? Well, as we all know, nowadays, most of the solutions and researches are mostly focused to improve a minor result in the most common data set. And there are tons of papers focused on that. But in my personal opinion, it makes more sense to evaluate solutions to be more generic for specific purposes, to evaluate them on wider variety of data sets and data. And here we have subject-specific texts. Nowadays, models are trained on more generic text, where here the terminology is specific to legislation. Also, as I already mentioned, the variety in words count is dramatic, which means that if we have a solution that is focused on, let's say, generating a summary of 2 sentences or in a specific length or even in a specific ratio, it will not work here. We have 24 languages, and last but not least, I wouldn't call it a small data set, but having in mind the amount of data that nowadays models are used to, yeah, it can be called small data set. We did some experiments on it. And we did the following. We experimented 4 approaches. 3 of them are extractive, and the last one is based on the GPT API. We use Rouge evaluation metric. It was already mentioned here, but basically it compares the number of the number of equal words in the generated summary towards the gold summary. We have Rouge 1, Rouge 2, Rouge 3, Rouge N, which basically compares 2 consecutive words, 3 consecutive words, and so on. We added an important restriction to our experiments. We tried to generate summaries with the same length as the gold summary. We added this restriction because you can imagine, with the wide variety of word counts that we have in the summary, that if we generate a summary with a totally different length than the gold summary that we're comparing against, it's really hard to evaluate and to measure any results. So we add this important limitation here, that we want to generate summaries with the same length as the presented golden summary. Let's dig into the experiments a little bit. First, we set up a baseline. Our baseline is really simple. Basically, we summarize the full document by extracting the first sentences from it until we reach the length of the desired length, actually. It turned out to be pretty good baseline because many studies show that the most important part of many documents is in the beginning. The next one is TF-IDF Summarizer. It's again pretty simple. Basically, we calculate weighted frequency of all words in the full document. It doesn't have any training. It's entirely based on the information in the full document. We create weighted frequency for all the words, and then we calculate a score for each sentence. Basically, we sum all the weights for each of its words, and then the sentences with the highest scores end up in the generated summary. The last extractive approach is TextRank. Here, it creates vectors for all the words using word-to-vec algorithm. Then it concatenates the vectors for all words for each sentence. Since the sentences vary in length, we use zero padding to make sure that all the vectors are the same length. And we create a square matrix of all the sentences and apply the PageRank algorithm. The most interesting part of the experiments, in my opinion, is the GPT summarization. We use the GPT API, and first, of course, we start with some prompt engineering. We assign GPT the role of lawyer. We start with, you are a lawyer. We need you to correctly answer questions about the following text. Then we provide the text, and we say, summarize the text without using any introductory words. Some comments here. We explicitly specify don't use introductory words because otherwise GPT tends to start the summary with, for example, here is a summary of blah, blah, blah. We want to avoid that, and this is why we did some prompt engineering here. We use the model GPT 3.5 Turbo. This is good because the next release model is significantly more expensive. And if we would have generated summaries for all the text, it would have cost us around $600. So we ended up generating summaries for 10% of the document, including some experiments, including some mistakes that we made. We spent around $100 for these summaries. We had 2 challenges here. The first one being that there were full documents which were with huge words count, and GPT has a restriction on the number of tokens that it can handle. What we did is we split the text on equal chunks and summarized all the chunks and concatenated the results at the end. The next challenge was that we want to generate a summary with a specific length. But for those of you who are familiar, GPT does not allow a parameter where we can indicate we want this exact length. We can specify the maximum length, but not the exact length. We did some manual tweaking with the ratio between the length of the full document and the summary, and the results are quite promising there as well. What did the result show? Well, the TF-IDF Summarizer outperformed the baseline in all languages. And the TF-IDF summarizer was outperformed by both GPT and TextRank in all languages. The results for TextRank and GPT were quite similar, where GPT outperforms TextRank on 8 languages and loses on 16 of them. We did lots of menu curating and analyzing of these differences. The two methods are so different in their origin that these differences can be expected. Last but not least, the success criteria of our paper will be if this data set is used by other researchers. We strongly believe that it has great value. We did our best to document it as well as possible. We published it in Hugging Face, so check it out. It's totally worth it, I promise. Thanks.